What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Slide Bite. Now, of course, today we're going to be taking a look at the battlefield gun, the Scar H. This has been in my armory for the better part of 2019 and 2020. It is my new primary rifle that I run at most airsoft games now. And now that I've been running this for a while, I feel confident enough to give a review on this. So, some quick background is I've been, of course, wanting a replacement for my 416. Not as a whole replacement, just a, replacement for when I feel like the 416 needs maintenance or that sort of thing. And I originally was going to do the Type 89, but the Type 89 proved to be a little unreliable on the mags, and this came out of nowhere for me. Bit of a surprise to be sure, but a pleasant one. And I've been, running it for the better part of a year, so can't wait to do a review on this. So a couple of things before we begin the video. For one, thank you to blackvariable.com for the enhanced Scar H buffer in this. When we go over the Scar H over in the table, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the buffer and the differences between it. If you guys want that buffer, I will be leaving a link in the description down below so that you guys can check it out. One other thing, if you guys need any gas blowback assistance, support, help, all that fun stuff, the Heavy Recoil Club is there for you. They're an awesome group of autistic guys that I hang out with, and that they shit on me at all times because of my poor taste in anime and guns, and I don't care. They're awesome, and we have a good time. And if you want to join that good time, I'll be leaving a link in the description down below so you can join them and also join in on the cacophony. Also, shout out to Jun, my friend and cameraman, who recommended that I do the Battlefield 4 theme. If you guys want me to do a themed intro for a certain gun, let me know in the comments down below, and maybe I'll consider it. Right, with all of that out of the way, yes, this is basically my new replacement gun for the 416. Bit of a bittersweet moment because this gun is just so much fun, but it's also a bit of a bitter part because my 416 is going into semi-retirement. She is going to be sitting on my wall as a pretty wall queen. I will take her out and go shooting occasionally, and I might even make her I might even make her do terrible Ahigo things. But more on this girl. This has been amazing. So as you guys have seen in the trailer, I have been kind of doing a high-speed thing with this, and you can see that I have her spec'd out in a certain way. And I, truth be told, wasn't really expecting to like this gun. I thought that scars were just cumbersome, ugly, Ugg boot-looking things. But it's starting to grow on me, and I think that might be a bit heretical. But like always, we're going to go ahead and take this to the table, take it apart, and I'm going to show you that enhanced buffer. And I'm going to show you the trades, all that fun controls on this. If you guys are interested in that, like always, there's timestamps in the description down below so you can skip past the technical bullshit and go ahead and talk about the handling and performance of this thing. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and take it to the table. Alright, welcome back to the table. So here we have our Scar H. And I'm just going to go ahead and quickly go over the trades because it's only on this side. FN doesn't really like to cover their guns in a lot of markings. So for starters, we have the FN logo here along with what the gun is and a fictional serial number. And that's pretty much it. On the other side of the gun, it is completely bare. Although what you can do, and a lot of people like to do this for my immersion, is they'll put a armory barcode right here. It's like an aftermarket sticker that you can get and put it on there just for that extra sense of FN-ness type thing. Going over controls, it's relatively AR in its, I guess, appearance. We have a ambidextrous magazine release, which you can press here or on the other side right here. You have one bolt release, so all you need to do is simply push on it like so, and the bolt will slam shut. The fire selector is actually kind of neat. So unlike ARs where it's a 180 degree throw, this is 90 degrees. So all you need to do is simply click with your thumb quite nicely. Not that much range of travel. and each position is about 45 degrees. Moving on to the stock, everyone has seen the infamous FN UGG boot. This is a pretty nice stock, actually. After using it for quite a while, I've actually come to enjoy this particular stock because of its features. So first things first is this does fold in. All you need to do is push on this button and it'll fold in like so. There is a little plastic catch there that will hook into the brass deflector on this particular example, and it will not move no matter what I try to do to it. And you just simply pull like so, and it clicks nicely into place. Control-wise on the stock here, there is a adjustable cheek rest, which was not known to me at the time. So all you need to do is push on this button and move it up to the desired height. This has 3 positions or 4, I can't really tell. Every time I try to adjust this, it kind of bounces around a lot, so I'm not too certain if it's 3 or 4, but I'm pretty sure it's 4. Aside from that, you have the adjustable length of pull, so all you need to do is simply push down on the tab here, and you can pull it out to number 1, and there are 6 different positions for your desired length. Next up is the charging handle, and it's a pretty simple charging handle here. You just simply grab and it'll pull the bolt open. It is full travel, so it can go the entire way, just like the real thing. It's pretty neat. One interesting quirk about the gun is, unlike most modern guns where the charging handle stays still, this one likes to strike the fear of God into the operator whenever they pull the trigger. So if I just go ahead and desk pop this in semi-auto, this reciprocates with every pull of the trigger. So when I go into performance and handling, I will describe the difficulties of working with this. But if you don't want it on a particular side, this is very easy to move over to whatever side it is comfortable to you. And there's even a small notch right there where you install it. And we'll go over that in just a second. A couple details on the front of the gun. First off, the hop up is this little screw here. So all you need to do is simply grab it firmly and twist, or better yet, just grab a coin or a screwdriver and twist that to adjust your hop up. Very simple system, doesn't require any proprietary tools whatsoever. One final thing to note is that there is a little key here. So if you twist on this gas block, if you twist all the way and pull out, you get a little star pattern key here. This is for essentially moving these little parts around, as well as, I guess, some other parts of the gun. I'm still figure out any useful way of using this, but it's a neat little feature that VFC put this up front. There is also a iron sight here that is folded down or folded up. You just simply pull on that detent when it's up to bring it back down. All right, so let's go ahead and take this thing apart. So first things first, let's go ahead and get that magazine out. This is a 30 round double stack magazine with a single feed lip, and a nice neat little feature is this has a dry fire mode. So if you were to move this follower right here, or this hold open catch, all the way down and move this little part until it clicks like so, it'll lock the follower down just enough so that the bolt carrier group can move back and forth without much harm to the gun. Neat system, very simple, and overall pretty reliable mags. Right, now that the mag is out of the way, let's go ahead and take off the lower. So unlike ARs, the lower on this, it comes off all the way and is actually held in by just one pin, which is this front one right here. So to get it out, I'm going to go ahead and just use my handy dandy screwdriver here and just simply push on it quite lightly, and pull out like so. This is a captive pin, so you don't have to worry about losing it. And from here, you can just simply move down and pull out with a little bit of force. Pulling this off, you can get a pretty decent view of the fire control group. It is literally just one hammer here. It's very reminiscent of an AK. I don't see much of a disconnector in there. I know that on some other guns they have a auto sear and a disconnect. And you can see the valve knock hammer there. Pretty neat fire control group. Next up, let's go ahead and get the buttstock off. So this is very simple. You just simply grab it and move it off like so. And it does look like a boot, very much so. From here, we can go ahead and start taking out the guts of the thing. So we just simply push on the part here or pull out, and you have your guide rod and recoil spring. It's quite a lot of spring. And then from here, we have two parts. We have our bolt carrier group and we have this buffer here. And this is the part that was given to me. So just pull it out. Here is the black variable enhanced buffer. And it's a nice little piece of kit. Very simple, 3D printed. It's very hard plastic. And it's got two little pads here that soften the blow of the bolt hitting the back of the receiver. It's a neat little aftermarket part, and if you guys want this, I'll be leaving a link in the description down below. It's a very nice piece of kit. Right, so before I pull the bolt all the way out, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to change this charging handle, and it is very simple. You just simply move the bolt all the way to the back here, and simply pull it out, and whoop, and from there, you just simply place it in like so. That is a very easy, very simple way of just switching from right-handed to left-handed or to whatever the operator prefers. This is just a simple little pin that you just place in. There's a little O-ring here at the front to essentially keep it, I guess, in and plugged in, kind of like a plunger. Neat little part here. I'm pretty sure they're aftermarket, like commas and other sort of things that you can put on there. Right, so now that we have everything out, we can go ahead and take the bolt out. So we just simply pull, come on, and there we go. So one thing I do want to note is that the bolt actually has little cuts in the side here, because I'm not sure if you guys can see it very well, but this little guide thing here, this is the little guide rails, and what happens is that the gun, actually the bolt rides along this. So one thing that I want you guys to, I guess if you guys are paying attention, is to make sure that you have this part well greased. You can see here that, I guess a little bit of the gun is starting to smooth itself out, but try to keep a nice thin layer of grease on this area, because this is gonna get a lot of wear. And there you go. This is your field stripped VFC Scar H. Very simple gun when you think about it in terms of just major components. There's like 4 here, 5, 6, 7 like parts that you really need to worry about. Anything else otherwise is just detail stripping. So with that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and put this back together, and I'll see you guys in performance and handling. Right, so now that we're back from the table, let's go ahead and just quickly talk about how I have this thing set up. So to shortly explain how I have this set up, I have it set up like a battle rifle. The end. But in all seriousness, I have a 1x4 power scope on here with a PEC hooked up to a pressure pad on the other side. And I also have a Fortis angle foregrip, which I honestly just use as a backstop to prevent my hand from getting in the way of the charging handle. I do have a quick attach sling that I run on most days, but for display purposes, I take the sling off. And I also have this really odd looking muzzle brake, which doesn't really do much, but looks really cool. Handling wise, let's start with the front here. So the handguard is pretty thick, and now that I have a PEC on here, I no longer can C-clamp it. So I can just hold it traditionally like so, or I hold it in this way, where I use the little notch here to slide my pinky on and run the pressure pad with my thumb on it like so. The charging handle is reciprocating, so one thing to look out for is when you guys are holding onto the gun like so, don't do it, or move the charging handle to the other side of the gun. You're going to sacrifice time when reloading, but if you want to have a comfortable holding like position right here, that's kind of what you're going to have to do. You can C-clamp the gun if you have giant monster hands. Personally, I don't recommend it just because of how thick this gun is. So a lot of people recommend vertical foregrips. It's up to operators.
Stand by.
I guess preferences per se. Moving on down to the magazine well, the gun's mags are awfully sticky, so if I was to hit the mag release here, it just comes out a little bit, and then you have to pull the rest of the way out. The mags are pretty easy to grab. They're very chunky. They're like the size of an iPhone, so a little thicker than one. Reloading these guns are quite easy, and the pull tabs on this honestly make reloading a much easier job. Moving on to the magazine release, it is ambidextrous on both sides, which is pretty nice. So reloading is quite a breeze. The button is rather stiff, but it's quite responsive, so I can reload this quite easily. The magazine's little pull tabs here are standard with the mags, and they make reloading so easy and smooth. The magazine well is a little bit flared, but I noticed that when reloading, I tend to get stuck on the sides here. So, moving on to the trigger controls, the fire selector is quite crisp. It is set at 45 degrees from the automatic is set from 45 degrees with semi-auto facing forward, and flipping it is nice and crisp. And if you were to use this under duress, you can actually push the fire selector all the way back, but it does not affect the operation of the gun in any sort of meaningful way. And that fire selector is very crisp. I love clicking on that. Right, moving on to the controls. Let's go ahead and set this to semi-auto and just go ahead and goes that trigger. I'm gonna go ahead and put on some weight. No creep. Okay, that was pretty crunchy. It was like a slow click. Let's go ahead and do a reset. Okay, I kind of want to say it's mushy, but it's not. It's not crisp, but it's kind of crunchy. Let's go ahead and try this in full auto. Okay, that one was like a definite wall, and then once you hit it, it's an actual crisp fire control group. So overall, the trigger is pretty crisp-ish. It's like crunchy. It's more crunchy than crisp. There is very little creep in it, but that's because this gun is relatively new. Using the charging handle is quite nice. You simply just wrap your finger around it. I realized that when reloading this gun, this charging handle actually has the same friction as the real steel version, which is pretty cool. Adds to the extra layer of training that this gun provides. Of course, the charging handle is ambidextrous, as I mentioned in the table. You can move the charging handle from the left to the right with relative ease. It's pretty easy to move it to either side to your preference, and in the end makes a better operator's experience. Moving on to the stock, and of course it folds to, I guess, store in a vehicle. So if you were to milsim and you get into a vehicle, you can fold this up, put it off to your side, and it'd be nice and comfortable. Then when you get out, just simply unfold like so. As I said in the table, it is hooked onto this little like brass deflector. So it's kind of nice. It's a very smart design by FN, and it just like unfolds so comfortably. There is a multi-position cheek rest here, and it is very comfortable. I have it set to around midpoint, so when my cheek weld is on, I get a nice clear view through the scope. And during during like shooting times when I'm just, you know, shooting out in the backyard, I have it set to 3, and then in times of airsoft games, I have it set to 6 for body armor adjustment, that sort of thing. Overall, I think the handling of the gun is quite pleasant. The controls are well placed, they're very crisp. The charging handle is a bit of a it's a bit of a risk hazard because it reciprocates, so it can fly back and hit something. I have had my thumb nearly broken by a real steel scar. Long story, but I learned my lesson from that, and it translated to this quite nicely. This is not going to break your finger in any sort of imagination. It's going to bruise it at most, or interrupt the feed cycle on this. But it's still a very, very nerve-wracking experience to have when you grab onto this and pull the trigger, and and it flies back and bruises your thumb. So that's something to be aware of. Aside from that, the gun's ergonomics are just fine, and they're completely acceptable. The major thing is mostly just that it feels cumbersome, and it's also slightly heavy. So for those of you who are not as physically inclined, this is going to be a bit of a workout for you guys. So with handling out of the way, let's go ahead and just quickly talk about performance. So the cyclic rate, let's go ahead and talk about the cyclic rate on this thing. The fire rate on this is kind of weird. It has a how do I put it? It has a relatively fast fire rate, but some reason during the midpoint, when it's halfway through the mag, it will tend to chug just a little bit and then go back to normal. But it will go through the mag. On semi-auto, the efficiency of this gun, the charge to reload ratio is roughly 3.5, depending on how well you are pacing your shots and managing cooldown. So overall, for a 308 gas blowback, the recoil and efficiency is actually quite good. With the enhanced buffer in this, I have noticed that it's not as gas efficient, but it's still enough that I can do 2 full reloads without having to recharge on gas. So in the end, I really haven't lost much, but gained quite a nice experience. Accuracy-wise, I am able to hit targets accurately out to roughly about 100 feet. Before the drop-off hits, I am usually running 0.28s or 0.25s, and chronoed with 0.25s. This has been recorded at around 425-ish feet per second. So it's a pretty hot shooting gun. As such, you can see here it's been red tagged by my local field, and I use it as such. And I'm still able to pull off some pretty decent shots. My effective range for this is like 75 feet, which isn't too bad. For a gun shooting at 400 feet, it can probably go a little further, but I'm more comfortable in the like mid-range with this. Overall, am I gonna recommend this rifle? Yeah-ish. I don't want to like outright say yes to everyone, because the gun does have some things that may turn off a lot of people. For one, it is a rather cumbersome gun. You can see that it's taking up like half of the screen here. It is a thick boy, and as such there is that weight issue. This gun here weighs roughly 8-ish pounds if I was to just guess. I don't have a scale near me at this point. Especially with my scope and all the fancy gear on it, the gun's weight does tend to stack up over time. So if you guys are only like a weekend plinker, then this may not be like your particular gun you want to use all the time. Actually, no, wait, it may. But if you were to use this very often, like you go every single weekend to go airsofting, you better be like in shape to run this, because this will wind you after a while. So yeah, hopefully you guys found this review somewhat helpful. Thank you for watching this far. If you guys like what you saw, just comment down below any questions that you have. I love to respond, or at least leave a like. I've had a lot of fun with this rifle, and yeah, I'm glad that I did a review on this finally. But yeah, with that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and put her back on the wall, and take care. I'll see you in the next video.